Empower Project, empowering people with disabilities through effective disaster management. The project partners are the Government of Istanbul from Turkey, Institute for Vocational Education and Professional Orientation from Greece, Institute for the Promotional of Development and Training from Spain, Istanbul Provincial Directorate of Family Labor and Social Services from Turkey, Training Services Center from Italy, Associația Fundația H from Romania, and Istanbul Technic University, Turkey. This project has been funded with support from the European Commission. This document and its contents reflect the views only of the authors, and the Commission and the National Turkey Agency cannot be held responsible for any use which may be made of the information contained therein. Project number 20201 TR01 CA 204 094078.
Hello to all of you. This podcast is part of Empower Project, empowering persons with disabilities through effective disaster management, coordinated by the Government of Istanbul and co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. Enrique is with us, and he's psychology at the University of Salamanca and Autonomous University of Madrid, clinical psychology at the European University of Madrid, and he's working the last years both as clinical and organizational psychologist in different entities, both in Spain and in Ireland. Also, he has training and he has some experience in emergencies during the last years. Enrique, welcome. One of the objectives of the Empower Project is to integrate disability into the disaster management cycle and to raise awareness among people with disabilities and their caregivers about the increasing risk of disaster. Therefore, I would like you to explain a bit about how to stay calm and avoid panic attacks in an emergency or natural disasters.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. First of all, thank you for having me here. I think it's a very big question to be answering in just a few minutes, but anyway, I will try to give some general information. I think it's first of all, I think it's very important to have clear that anxiety or stress is not a bad thing or a negative thing as it's per se. In some point, stress is necessary for survival and a very important thing in our lives. We all felt, I think, already in our lives, or we are going to feel stress in our life, and it's totally normal. And in some point, as I said, is positive. We don't feel only anxiety in heavy situations of chaos, such as natural disasters, accidents, etc., but also in our day-to-day, for example, at work or with our families or with our partners in our day-to-day also. So it is important to have this clear that it's not a bad thing always to feel this stress or to feel some anxiety. The anxiety will be the physical signal at the end of this stress. It's what we can see with our eyes, that what we can feel. Like, for example, you feel tachycardic, you feel some days with racing heart, you feel shortness of breath, you can feel also the urge to run away at some point. And also the anxiety is the answer to an external or an internal threat. If the level of anxiety is the correct, that will allow us to respond in a proper way with the resources that we have to face this challenge or this threat. That is what we call in psychology eustress, which is kind of the positive stress. But on the other hand, if the stress remains, for example, too much longer than the threat or the challenge, or the threat is not there anymore, but we keep a high level of stress and anxiety, that will be dangerous for our health, both in a mental way and also physically. Also, if the threat, for example, of the situation demands us much more resources that we have, we will feel also over demanding, and we will feel this negative stress, and this negative stress will appear. We call it from the psychology to this negative stress distress, but it's not adaptive in our day-to-day. At the end, I think that it's very, very useful to differentiate that and knowing that not every time we feel stress or we feel anxiety is a bad thing. Second thing, when we see people in stressful situations such as an accident, natural disasters, or similar, we need to differentiate between those people who are conscious about the situation, about what happened, and the level of anxiety is, we will say, normal or adaptive, and those who may be in shock in that moment, and maybe they are not aware or they are not conscious about everything in that moment. For the first ones, people who are present both physically, mentally, and also emotionally, they know the situation, what happened, but they feel over demanding, they feel this tachycardia, they feel this very high level of anxiety. We can try to do with them, for example, some mindfulness exercises, some breathe exercises, like, for example, asking them to close their eyes and take breaths through the noise, for example, slowly and in a deeply way, while, for example, counting to 3, 1, 2, 3, then focusing in our body, feeling our lungs are full of air, for example, keeping the breath for a few seconds, and then again, let the air going out through the mouth in a slowly way. And counting, for example, to 3 again. We can repeat this process like 2 or 3 times or whatever is needed, and we can repeat that in different situations with the people. But in other hand, for example, for those people who can be in that moment in shock, in a mental and emotional shock, if we see, for example, or we feel that the person in an accident, for example, is not there, if the level of stress is very high, but they are not conscious about that, they didn't remember what happened, for example, we need to let them be there, at least for a while. Because in some point, this shock, this disconnection of the world, of the moment, allows them to integrate a heavy pain, a pain that is not able to handle in that moment. So we cannot break that. For example, if you see a mother in the street or in a road, in an accident, in the middle of an accident with victims, you cannot tell them, okay, don't worry, just take a breath and everything will be fine, because it could be even negative for them. So we need to keep them in this status at least for a while. And in that case, it will be enough being there and validating all they need. If they need to cry, it's okay to cry. If they need to scream, it's also okay to scream. If they need to sleep, for example, okay, just let them to sleep for a while. If they need to punch the table, it's okay if they need to punch the table. Of course, always keeping their physically and others' safety. Once we see the person is, we will say, back to reality, we can maybe try to do some breath exercises if necessary, or similar exercises, but not before. And also, I would like to highlight, I think it's the last but not least in that case, we can also face, as we did all of us through the last 2 years, for example, more continuous natural disasters or sanitary disasters, as, for example, COVID, since 2.5 years ago. And it's normal that in that cases we feel a collective anxiety, for example. It can also happen that all the mental and emotional things that we have left behind, silenced through the years, comes out. In order to remain calm, we should, for example, follow the protocols, the authorities, and try to filter and control the amount of information and news that we seek, that we are seeking. It is not good to seek information at all time, but just enough to be informed. Also, it's positive to look for this information, of course, in official press sources or official sites, and differentiate that information from fake news, for example. Also, when possible, it's very useful to try to keep the same habits that we have before. For example, if you like to run or you used to run every day, just when possible, try to run. Just keep running. If I used to watch film, just keep watching films. If you like to go to walk, just go to walk.
So thank you very much for your tips, Enrique. It will be very useful to keep calm and avoid panic attacks in any emergency situations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope so. Bye now.